the first thing you can do to actually sell your condo in this dreadful Toronto market, and this doesn't apply to everyone, but get rid of the tenant. Yes, I said it. And before anyone freaks out in the comments, I'm not talking about doing anything shady. I'm talking about handling it legally, respectfully, and in a way where it benefits both sides. If your unit is tenanted, especially long-term, your buyer pool drops significantly. Most buyers these days are either end users who want to move in, or they're investors who are looking for a good opportunity. If they're an end user, they're usually hesitant to buy a tenanted property because even if the tenant says they're leaving, there's always a risk they may not. And I'm not going to get too deep into it here, but anyone who knows anything about the landlord and tenant board here in Ontario knows that it definitely favors the tenants. If they're an investor, a lot of the time, they also don't want a unit that already has a tenant, especially if it's someone who's been living there for years paying 2015 level type rent. Even if the tenant just signed recently at today's prices, from my experience, most investors still prefer to do their own due diligence, pick their own tenant, and set their own lease terms. And on top of all that, tenanted properties usually don't show that well. And that's not the tenant's fault. They don't own the property, and quite frankly, they probably don't care about the sale the way an owner would. So the bottom line, whether it's an end user or an investor, a tenanted unit often makes your property harder to sell in this market. I'm actually experiencing this firsthand right now with one of my own clients' listings. Long story short, I've had this listing for about a month now. It's tenanted, and although the tenant is planning to leave by the end of the month, at the time of listing, they were still living there. We priced it pretty aggressively, not too low, but definitely right around fair market value. A few days after we listed, an identical unit 6 floors down came to the market at a fairly similar price. I think they were a little bit lower than us, but they also didn't include a locker, and ours did. The big difference between the two units, that unit was vacant and it was professionally staged. Fast forward about a month later, just a week or so ago now, and that vacant staged unit ended up selling. It didn't get asking price, but it sold fairly close to it, which in this market is expected. Now, as a realtor, after a unit sells, I can see which agent handled the deal. I didn't recognize the name. I noticed they never came through our unit, which is odd, right? You'd expect that if you're looking at one, you'd at least want to see the identical layout just 6 floors up. You're already in the building anyways. So out of curiosity, I gave the agent a call, and pretty much as I expected, he told me they had seen my listing online, but once they realized it was still tenanted, his client decided to move forward with the vacant unit instead. They didn't even bother booking a showing to our unit. And that's the reality we're in right now. So what can you do? You can offer the tenant cash to leave. You can even offer to organize their move, or even better, have your realtor help them. Especially if they've been there a long time, chances are they haven't talked to a realtor in years. If they don't already have an agent representing them, have yours show them rental options nearby that might actually be an upgrade. It doesn't have to be hostile or defensive, right? If you come to them showing them good opportunities like a better place, maybe even a cheaper one, they might voluntarily decide to move. Now, nobody wants to move, obviously. If you've ever moved, you know it's a massive hassle. That's why you need to make it worth their while, whether that's offering them cash, helping them find a new place, covering moving costs, or giving them flexibility on timing. It's not just about throwing money at the problem, although that does help, but it's about making the whole transition as easy and stress-free as possible. And yeah, if they've been there for 10 years paying way below market rent, you're going to have to sweeten the deal even more. But that upfront cost, I promise you, it will save you so much more than the slow bleed of your property sitting stale on the market for 3 months, or probably longer if you have it listed with a tenant. And listen, don't just take my word for it. I pulled up some real Treb stats for you just to show you how much of a disadvantage you're at by selling a tenanted condo right now. Let's take downtown Toronto, specifically the C1 district, as an example, which is anything south of Bloor and west of Yonge. Right now, there are 972 one-bedroom condos for sale in C1. Of those, 263 units, which is about 25%, are tenanted. 693 units, about 75%, are either owner-occupied or vacant. Now, here's the kicker. In 2025 so far, there have been 384 one-bedroom condo sales in C1. Of those 384, guess how many had tenants? 45. Only 45 were tenanted properties. That's just 12%. And if you zoom in even closer, in the last 30 days, there were 82 one-bedroom condo sales. Of those, just 7 were tenanted. The other 75 were owner-occupied or vacant. So what does that tell you? If you're selling with a tenant, you're already starting at a disadvantage because 3/4 of your competition is either vacant or owner-occupied. And even worse, barely 10% of tenanted properties are actually getting sold. So if you're serious about selling, do yourself a favor and find a way, legally, respectfully, or with incentives to vacate the unit before you list. By the way, if you want to talk through a strategy for your specific condo, whether it's tenanted or vacant, feel free to book a call with me. I'm always happy to chat and help you come up with a real plan, not just general advice. I'll drop a link in the description below for that. And another quick side note, because I just realized I did not introduce myself. If you're new to the channel, my name is fNK&x and I'm a real estate broker here in Toronto. I've been helping clients buy, sell, and invest in both condos and freehold for over 8 years now, right across the downtown core and surrounding areas of the GTA. If you ever need real advice that's specific to your situation, not just the cookie cutter stuff, I'm always happy to help. Okay, so the second thing you can do to actually sell your condo in today's market, and that is staging. Now, I know this one's talked about a lot, but that's because it works, especially in a market like ours right now. But let me give you the real reason why. As an agent who represents a lot of buyers, I can tell you firsthand, after clicking through literally hundreds of condos, especially if you're looking for like one-bedroom units, it all becomes noise. White walls, beige tiles, small kitchens, similar layouts. It's honestly exhausting filtering through some of these units. Staging isn't just about fancy furniture. It's about grabbing attention when every other unit starts to look the same. And even if your unit is a typical cookie cutter box, you can still stand out. Honestly, especially if it's a cookie cutter unit, those are the ones that need staging the most. Sometimes when I represent sellers with smaller condos, I hear or get this type of pushback. Well, the unit's really small and the furniture is going to make it feel even smaller. Maybe it's better to leave it empty to optimize the space. And you know what? At first that sounds logical, but really think about it. No one is being tricked into thinking a 400 or 500 square foot condo is somehow bigger just because it's empty. Buyers know what they're buying. Treb actually just made an update on our realtor platform, which will probably extend to third-party platforms very soon, where you now have to disclose the exact square footage. Everything's available and visible online right now. Before they even step foot into the unit, they know the exact size. What they don't know sometimes until you show them is how to maximize the space. Without staging, your 500 square foot box might get lost among the 600 or 700 other identical boxes that are for sale. With staging, you guide the buyer. You show them how a tricky or smaller layout could work. You create a vision they can buy into. And this doesn't just apply to smaller units either, obviously. Even bigger condos benefit massively from staging. It's about setting yourself apart in a crowded marketplace. Now, think about the buyer's journey. Before they even book a showing, they're scrolling through listings online, not just with the realtor on their own. They go on like realtor.ca or condos.ca, plug in all their filters. So let's say 2-bed, 2-bath under 800,000. And then what? Bam, 300 listings pop up. Now, they're clicking through them one by one. And I promise you, by the 30th, 40th, or even 50th listing, they're not even scrolling through every picture anymore. Even as a realtor, I'm not. They're glancing at maybe the first 1 or 2 photos and deciding in seconds whether they save it to their list or move on. Staging gives you that crucial first impression. Without it, even if your unit is objectively better, has nicer finishes, or is priced much more aggressively than the competition, you might still get skipped over because the visuals didn't grab them immediately. You need to make buyers stop scrolling. You need to make them save your listing before they even realize why they're saving it. And this ties into something equally important, and that is investing in professional photography and videography, especially if you're going to pay for staging. If you're already working with an agent, there's no way they don't push getting professional pictures done, and if they don't, you definitely need to find another agent. The amount of cell phone pictures I still see on MLS is unbelievable. It's wild, and I'm telling you right now, even if you have the most incredible, renovated, perfect condo, if your photos aren't professionally done, your listing will get skipped. Full stop. Good marketing is what gets buyers through the door. You're not just selling square footage, you're selling a lifestyle. You're giving buyers a feeling, a vision of what their life could look like in that space. And bad photos, they kill that vision instantly. And that takes us to the third thing you can actually do to sell your condo in this market, and that is highlight the unique. You've got to be unique somehow. Staging and photos are one way to stick out for sure, but what if you've got something else? A killer view, a rare corner unit, insane building amenities like a co-working lounge, rooftop terrace, or a Peloton studio. I've seen some condos with crazy unique amenities, especially the newer ones. Or maybe even just price. Maybe you're the only unit in the building under a certain price point. Whatever it is, lead with it. Put it in the first line of your listing description. Make your headline about that, not just the boring 1 bed, 1 bath, 1 parking type checklist. Because otherwise, you're just another listing getting overlooked in a crowded market. Inventory is super high right now. Competition is brutal. Even if there's absolutely nothing special about your unit, no view, horrible location, basic amenities, I don't know why you would have bought it to begin with, but let's say that's what you've got. Then it needs to be something like price, for example. There has to be something that pushes you ahead of the competition. Something that makes a buyer stop scrolling and think, wait a minute, this looks interesting. You can't afford to look like every other listing right now. You need to have a hook. And whether that hook is a jaw-dropping view, a crazy under-market price, or just an awesome rooftop pool, put it front and center. And that takes us to the fourth thing you can do to actually sell in this market, and that is offer smart and unique incentives, not just price reductions. Buyers right now are trained to expect price reductions. It's built in. It's no longer a deal if you drop your price by $10,000. It's just expected. And trust me, I've represented many sellers in this current market where we'll sit down, do a proper CMA, which is a comparative market analysis, and come up with a real objective market value for their unit. And then what happens? The seller says, well, let's price it $20,000 higher. That way, when a buyer negotiates down, we'll still get what we want. But here's the problem. Buyers are already expecting to negotiate down. They're already budgeting in a price cut the minute they see your listing. And by that same token, the very first question most buyers ask when they like a unit is, how low do you think we can get it for? Now, obviously, there are exceptions. If your condo is truly unique, has that wow factor like a stunning view, a rare layout, or insane renovations, you might get asking price or even over asking if it's priced properly. But right now, 9 times out of 10, a buyer is expecting to pay less than listing price. And everyone has access to the same information. We can all see what the last unit in the building or area sold for. So this is the key. Don't confuse price reductions with incentives. They are two completely different things. Price reductions are expected. Incentives are memorable. Incentives make a buyer feel like they're getting something extra, something special, without you having to blow up your price even further. And That's exactly what you want to leverage in this market. So for example, for an incentive, you can offer to pay their maintenance fees for a year. That's like a $6,000 to $8,000 incentive in some buildings. Framed right, that's a perk. It's not a discount. And it's more memorable, and I guarantee you it's probably something that's going to get talked about, whether it's at their office, to their friends, or to their family. It becomes a story, right? They're going to say, hey, you won't believe what I saw today. I found a unit where they're willing to pay the maintenance fees for a year. It makes your listing stand out way more than just slapping a $5,000 price reduction on it, like the 500 other listings that quietly reduced their prices this week. And just to be clear, this goes on top of your price adjustment. In today's market, you can't just choose between a price reduction or an incentive. You have to use both strategically. Price to be competitive, and then add on an incentive on top to get buyers excited and emotionally invested. That's how you stand out. And while we're on the topic of price, make sure you actually price your unit properly. I know that sounds obvious, but unfortunately to some, it's not. Check what sold recently, not what sold at the peak of the market 2 years ago. I've actually seen similar listings in the exact same building priced over $100,000 apart. And when I call the listing agent to ask why, they'll reference a unit that sold literally a year ago. It just makes no sense. If you list your condo and you don't immediately get at least a few showings in the first week or first weekend, then your price is off. It's as simple as that. Price properly and combine it with everything else I've talked about so far in this video, and I guarantee you, you will sell in this market. Okay, back to the incentives. So you can also do things like offer to repaint. That's like a $2,000 to $3,000 value right there, especially if your place has bold colors, anything that's not neutral, or scuffed up walls, or a lived-in vibe. And honestly, if you had tenants in the property, I would definitely offer this, but even if you've lived there yourself and taken really good care of the place, a fresh coat of paint always looks really good. It freshens up the unit, makes it feel cleaner, newer, and more move-in ready. Now, ideally, this is something you should get done before you even list, because again, first impressions really matter. But let's say you don't have time to repaint before listing for whatever reason, then at the very least, make sure you offer it up front. Let the buyers know before the showing that if they move forward with an offer, the place can be professionally repainted, neutralized, and made fresh before closing. It plants that little seed in the buyer's mind so they're not focusing on little marks here and there while they're viewing your unit. And this applies to any incentive you offer. Even if you have it written down or posted in your listing, I would still reach out to the buyer's agent or buyers if you're working with them directly and let them know before they even see the unit. That way, it's something they're already taking into consideration when they're looking at your unit. That can easily be the difference between getting an offer or getting skipped. And don't underestimate the psychology of small gestures. Even offering to include things like upgraded light fixtures, maybe a Nest thermostat, built-in closet organizers, or even a wall-mounted TV. Those little touches that maybe don't cost a crazy amount will stick in the buyer's mind. It makes them feel like they're getting more value without you having to throw more money at a massive price cut. Sometimes it's not just about offering $10,000 off. Now, obviously that's nice, but it's also about offering something that feels personalized and special. And that takes us to the fifth thing you can do to stand out and sell in this dreadful market, and that is sell the building experience, not just the unit. When buyers are overwhelmed with choices, which they are right now because inventory is through the roof, they're not only comparing units, they're comparing buildings too. They're asking which buildings are better managed, which ones have lower maintenance fees, which ones feel safer, newer, more luxurious, or have a stronger sense of community. If your building has a great reputation, lean into it. If it has a unique vibe or even an amazing concierge, make sure you highlight it. And something like this, you may not always be able to fully incorporate into your listing description. So this is where your marketing photos or videography really matter. Show off not just the inside of the condo, but also the amenities, the lobby, the gym, the rooftop, and even the neighborhood itself. Give buyers a feel for what their day-to-day life could actually look like, whether that's grabbing coffee downstairs, walking to the waterfront, or working from that rooftop lounge. Remember, people aren't just buying a unit, they're buying a lifestyle. Yes, this market is brutal for condo sellers right now, but that also means most sellers aren't trying that hard just because they're not really sure if they're going to sell. They're just listing and hoping. And in a high inventory, slow buyer market, hope doesn't sell, but strategic moves do. Creative thinking does. Treating your condo sale like a mini marketing campaign, that's how you stand out and actually get it sold. If you're serious about getting results and not just sitting on the market, I'd love to connect. I offer one-on-one strategy calls where we break down exactly what you can do to get your condo sold, tailored to your unit, your building, and today's reality. The link's below if you want to book some time with me, and I'd be more than happy to chat. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.